Hello guys, welcome to my channel Lucid Fanfic, and if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. It was an ordinary day, the kind where the sun bathed the world in a warm, golden glow. The cheerful sounds of birds chirping filled the air, mingling with the peals of laughter from children playing in the park nearby. Meanwhile, a hero was amid a dramatic showdown with a notorious villain. After an intense confrontation, the relentless hero emerged victorious, apprehending the villain, who was escorted away in handcuffs by the police. The onlookers erupted into applause, showering the hero with praise for their bravery and determination in restoring peace. At UA High School, things were quite different. Class 1A had the day off, allowing the students to unwind and enjoy much-needed relaxation. The common room buzzed with laughter and camaraderie as each student engaged in their leisure activities. Mineta and Denki were deeply engrossed in an intense video game battle, their shouts and cheers echoing through the room as they tried to outdo each other. Meanwhile, Momo, Jiro, and Todoroki had gathered around a table, immersed in a friendly game of cards, their focus shifting between strategy and playful banter. In a quieter corner of the room, Izuku Midoriya sat on a comfortable couch, flipping through the pages of a book. His face lit up with curiosity as he absorbed the information. Shiro, noticing his classmate's engrossed demeanor, wandered over and asked, "Hey Izuku, what are you reading over there?" Izuku looked up, his enthusiasm palpable. "Oh, it's just a survival guide. It covers everything you need to know about thriving in the wild, like finding food, building shelters, and useful tips for emergencies." He paused for a moment before adding, "And I'm also diving into another book by Dr. Stone." "Dr. Stone? That's a pretty odd title," Shiro remarked, raising an eyebrow in curiosity. Izuku chuckled softly. "That's his handle. His real name is Senku Ishigami. This book is fascinating. It's all about applying science to everyday life and how to harness it for practical solutions." Shiro nodded, intrigued. "So what made you switch gears? I figured you'd be indulging in All Might's autobiography." "Oh, I've already read that 10 times. Izuku exclaimed with a sheepish smile. "I thought it was about time I explored something new for a change." His eyes sparkled with excitement as he anticipated the discoveries that lay ahead in his new reads. As Shiro rummaged through the bookshelves in Dr. Stone's office, he stumbled upon a particularly interesting book hidden beneath a stack of other titles. "Hey, Izuku, what's this one about?" he called out, curiosity peaking in his voice as he picked up the book. The moment he glanced at the cover, a bright title caught his attention: "How to Confess Your Love to Your Crush." Without waiting for a response, he turned back to Izuku, who was already lunging forward in a panic. "No, wait, Shiro!" Izuku exclaimed, his eyes widening in alarm as he reached out to snatch the book from Shiro's grasp, but it was too late. A knowing smile spread across Shiro's face as he read the title again slowly, teasingly. "No way. Are you going to confess to Uraraka?" he exclaimed, his voice echoing with excitement. Izuku's face flushed with embarrassment, and he quickly cupped a hand over Shiro's mouth, glancing around nervously to ensure no one overheard. "SSSH. Don't say that out loud. You want Mina to hear you?" Izuku whispered urgently, his heart racing. Shiro chuckled, amused by Izuku's reaction. "Sorry, but I'm just surprised, man. You're finally going to do it. It's about time." Taking a deep breath, Izuku responded earnestly, "Yeah, I've thought about it a lot, and I think I'm going to go for it." His determination was palpable, but he still felt the weight of anxiety pressing down on him. Shiro, ever the supportive friend, grinned widely. "Well, she's just outside. Why don't you just confess? You don't need a book. Just speak from the heart, man." His encouragement rang in Izuku's ears, pushing him to be brave. "I'm right, Shiro. I think I'm just going to do it," Izuku declared resolutely, setting the book back on the table. He stood up from the couch, his heart pounding with anticipation. Stepping out of the building, he felt a mix of nerves and excitement coursing through him. Meanwhile, Shiro hurried to the door to peek outside and gauge the situation. He had sensed the stir and noted that several other classmates had overheard his earlier conversation and were now equally curious about what was unfolding. Just then, Mina appeared as if she had materialized from thin air, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Am I too late? Did he confess yet?" she asked, her tone teasing. Zero raised an eyebrow, slightly baffled. How did you get here, Mina? You were just in your room, he asked, trying to piece together her sudden appearance. Mina only shrugged, a playful smile on her face. My ship's senses were tingling, she replied casually, though her cryptic comment left Zero scratching his head in confusion. Meanwhile, Izuku had ventured outside and spotted Uraraka standing under a newly planted tree, her hands lovingly cradling a small sapling as she ensured it was thriving. Hey, Ochako, what are you doing? He called out, mustering up the courage to approach her. Uraraka looked up, her eyes brightening at the sight of him. Oh, Deku, I didn't see you there. I was just checking to make sure the tree I planted was doing okay, she replied, her voice warm and inviting. Taking a deep breath to steady himself, Izuku replied with a hint of nervousness. Oh, that's good. So, Ochako, I wanted to tell you something I've been thinking about for a while now. His heart raced at the thought of sharing his feelings. Uraraka's interest was piqued as she leaned slightly closer. Yeah? What is it? She asked, her curiosity evident. Izuku inhaled deeply, ready to unleash the words that weighed heavily on his heart. Well, I just wanted to let you know that. Before he could finish his confession, a brilliant flash of green light exploded across the bright blue sky, momentarily stunning them both and overshadowing everything else at that moment. Izuku opened his eyes, but was met with an oppressive darkness that enveloped him like a thick fog. Panic surged through him as he struggled to recall what had happened. What happened? All I remember is that bright green light, he thought, confusion gnawing at him. His heart raced as he realized the last thing flashing in his mind was the brilliance of a mysterious light that had seemed to swallow everything. Wait, what happened to Ochako? I need to get up. The urgency of his thoughts raced even faster than his racing pulse. With all his strength, he attempted to move, but an overwhelming force held him in place. Why can't I move? And why can't I see anything? What's going on? The desperation mounted with each failed attempt to free himself from his immobile state. Unbeknownst to Izuku, his entire body had been turned to stone, a fate that had befallen not only him but every single person around him. In Class 1A, chaos had erupted as students tried to escape, their horrified screams echoing through the air, only to be abruptly silenced as one by one, they too were transformed into lifeless statues. Fortunately, none of them tumbled or crumbled, preserving the horrid tableau of their last moments. The world outside had descended into an eerie quietude, with the usual hustle and bustle replaced by a haunting stillness. Airplanes, once soaring through the sky, fell like giant metal birds, crashing into cities below and creating a cacophony of destruction. In the aftermath, the scattered shards of those who had been turned into stone littered the streets, remnants of their former selves amidst the wreckage, silently bearing witness to the catastrophe that had befallen them all. Mom, everyone please be all right, Izuku thought desperately, teetering on the edge of unconsciousness as pain radiated from the left side of his cheek. Suddenly, he felt a sharp sting, a reminder of reality. Wake up, kid, urged a deep male voice, jolting him fully awake. Groggy and disoriented, Izuku blinked several times to adjust to the dim light and was met with the sight of the past wielders of One for All surrounding him. Do you guys know what's going on? He asked, his voice trembling slightly as he searched their faces for answers. The first wielder of One for All, a tall figure with an air of authority, stood up with a serious expression. I'm afraid not. We have never encountered a situation like this, but it appears your entire body has been turned to stone, he explained gravely. What? How did this happen? Was it a villain attack, or did someone's quirk go awry? Izuku stammered, panicking as he began to mutter to himself, lost in his thoughts. Suddenly, he felt another sharp slap across his cheek, pulling him back to the present. The wielder of Black Whip glared at him, his expression firm yet concerned. Listen, kid, we can worry about the details later. For now, you have to stay awake, he commanded, reiterating the urgency of the situation. Yes, sir. I won't give up hope, no matter what, Izuku replied, determination flooding his voice. He knew that staying alert was crucial. Hey, don't worry, kid. We're right here with you. If you start to doze off, we can just slap you awake again, joked one of the other wielders, attempting to lighten the heavy atmosphere. Izuku chuckled despite the gravity of the situation, mentally preparing himself to fight against fatigue. As days and then years passed like fleeting moments, the world outside transformed dramatically. Buildings that once stood tall and proud crumbled to dust, overtaken by the relentless growth of nature. Vines snaked up the sides of structures, and trees and wildflowers flourished in vibrant hues where concrete once ruled. Wildlife thrived in this reclaimed environment, filling the air with the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves. During this prolonged solitude, Izuku concentrated deeply, engaging in rich conversations with the past wielders of One for All. He shared stories of his life, the friends he had made, the battles he had fought, and the dreams he still held onto. In return, they recounted their own journeys, the struggles they faced, and the sacrifices made to protect what they loved. The bond they formed provided him with comfort and strength, lighting a fire of hope in his heart even amid despair. Time skip. One day, amidst a vast, serene forest, Izuku's stone-encased body lay in the gentle shade of towering trees. The symphony of nature surrounded him, a vibrant chorus of rustling leaves and swirling winds. Suddenly, a sharp crack pierced the peaceful ambience. The stone prison that had held him captive for so long began to fracture. With an exhilarating rush of energy, Izuku felt himself breaking free, and as the last remnants of stone crumbled away, he surged upwards, liberated at last. He raised his hands to inspect them, marveling at their flexibility and warmth. Taking a moment, he tilted his head back to gaze at the clear blue sky, sunlight cascading down and illuminating his features, his unruly green hair spilling over his eyes. The sounds of chirping birds and a gentle breeze brushing against his skin filled him with a profound sense of freedom and joy. With his heart racing and emotions overflowing, Izuku couldn't contain himself. "I'm free," he yelled, his voice echoing through the trees, a triumphant declaration of his newfound liberation. A tear of relief and happiness trailed down his cheek, marking the end of one chapter and the exhilarating beginning of another. Once Izuku managed to calm his racing heart, the feeling of triumph was overshadowed by the weight of a pressing decision. He was eager to test his theory, but venturing outside was not an option. He was uncertain how the creatures beyond the cave would react to his presence. Resolute, he decided to track down his classmates instead. As he turned to leave, a wave of regret washed over him at the thought of the miracle fluid now dubbed going to waste. Suddenly, a memory sparked in his mind. He had salvaged the stomachs of 3 wolves. With renewed determination, he hurried back to the cave to retrieve one of the stomachs, carefully using a few sturdy branches to fashion a makeshift bag that would secure its precious contents. Once he felt confident that the bag was secure, Izuku directed his attention to fortifying the cave entrance. His goal was to ensure that no animals could wander in, except for the bats that had made it their home. After some diligent work, he stepped back to admire his handiwork. The mouth of the cave was now artfully concealed with long clumps of mud, save for a carefully crafted opening to allow the bats easy passage in and out. With that task completed, Izuku returned to his camp, energized by a sense of purpose, and began gathering the supplies he would need for the journey ahead. He collected a large assortment of stones, methodically sharpening each one to a fine point, preparing them for potential use. In addition, Izuku dedicated time to conditioning his body. Lifting a boulder twice his size, guided by his quirk, he focused on utilizing his abilities more effectively. To further enhance his skills, he practiced swinging from tree to tree using his black whip, honing his agility, and improving his combat techniques. Unbeknownst to Izuku, he was being closely observed from above. Perched on a sturdy branch of a nearby tree was a girl with striking blue eyes, her long blonde hair tied into a spiky ponytail by a small rope. Encircling her waist was another rope, securing her outfit a vibrant blue dress that complemented her agile form. A shield rested against her back, 2 stone daggers nestled within its protective embrace. "Hey Kahaku, how's it looking?" called out another girl nearby, her tall and athletic figure accentuated by her curvy silhouette. Her own blonde hair, braided into 2 playful ponytails that cascaded down to her shoulders, was tied at the ends with vibrant green bows. "Hey Nikki, he seems to be training hard. He's strong, and there's some strange light surrounding him. Plus, he took down 3 wolves, replied Kahaku, her voice carrying both intrigue and caution. Oh, let me see, Nikki exclaimed, climbing up the tree with nimbleness and snatching the spyglass from Kahaku's hands. She peered through the lens, her eyes widening with excitement. Oh wow, look at those muscles. He's quite cute. A faint blush crept across Nikki's cheeks as she admired Izuku's physique. Are you out of your mind? He's one of the stone people. Who knows if he's good or bad? Kahaku retorted, reclaiming the spyglass. Ah, spoil sport. I was just making an observation. If he's a good guy, I might just give him a good time. Nikki shot back playfully, a cheeky grin on her face. But Kahaku merely rolled her eyes, her focus returning to Izuku, who was diligently intensifying his workout, oblivious to the 2 girls watching him with curiosity and fascination. Izuku continued his relentless training as the days slipped by, a fierce determination burning within him. Now he had mastered the ability to harness 24% of One for All, and the transformation was striking. He donned an impressive ensemble of wolf pelts, with the majestic head of a wolf resting atop his own, eyes sparkling with the ferocity of the wild. A second pelt draped over his torso, another wolf head perched on his right shoulder, emblematic of strength and tenacity. The final pelt wrapped around his lower body, completing his fierce attire, while rabbit pelts shielded his feet, providing both warmth and quiet as he moved. With a sense of purpose, Izuku ensured all his gear was properly secured. Strapped to his back were 3 finely crafted spears, their tips glinting under the dappled sunlight filtering through the trees, alongside a sturdy stone knife and a well-worn water bag, ready for the journey ahead. Taking a moment to survey his makeshift camp, he turned his gaze toward the dense forest that beckoned him with its whispers. There was an electric thrill in the air as he activated his quirk, feeling the surge of energy course through his body. He dashed into the woods, swift as a shadow, his newfound speed astonishing both himself and his friends. Kahaku, eager and agile, leaped effortlessly from tree to tree, keeping pace with Izuku. Hey Kahaku, come back. We're not allowed to wander beyond the village, called Nikki, a sound of frustration tinged with worry in her voice. You can stay if you want, but I'm not letting him out of my sight, replied Kahaku, a grin on her face as she pushed herself forward, undeterred by Nikki's caution. Nikki sighed, but her sense of adventure compelled her to follow, knowing she couldn't let her friends venture out alone. Izuku found himself deep in an expansive forest, a tapestry of towering trees and thick underbrush surrounding him. As he stood there, he couldn't help but notice his unfamiliar state naked, with cracks that seemed to weave a delicate pattern up both his arms, extending from his hands to his shoulders. His mind raced with questions, the chill of the air biting at his skin. Well, this is certainly intriguing, he mused. Given the weather, my clothes would have been worn away by now, but that's hardly the priority. Where am I? And what happened to everyone else? Panic began to creep in as he surveyed his surroundings. Trees stretched endlessly in every direction, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers against the overcast sky. Nothing looked familiar, and that unsettling uncertainty urged him forward, but not before he covered his privates with leaves. I guess I have to choose a path, he resolved. Let's move ahead. Let's see if I still have it. With a deep breath, Izuku activated his quirk. A crackling surge of green electricity enveloped him, illuminating the dim forest before he launched forward, sprinting at a blinding speed. As adrenaline coursed through his veins, he scanned the area around him. To his horror, he discovered that he was not alone. Several figures were scattered throughout the woods, their expressions frozen in terror, evidence of a grim fate that had befallen them turned to stone. An overwhelming wave of helplessness crashed over Izuku. He wanted to help but felt utterly powerless, his heart pounding with anxiety. Eventually, he arrived at a clearing, a more open space amidst the dense foliage. Good, this looks like a suitable spot for a base, he said aloud, trying to clear his mind. Suddenly, the voice of one of the previous users of One for All spoke up in his head. Hey, Ninth, I thought you wanted to check on the others. I will, Izuku replied with determination, but right now, I need to focus on securing a place to rest and gathering equipment for survival. The past user's voice agreed, understanding the necessity of his caution. That makes sense, the voice continued. Plus, if you manage to discover a way to revert those who are stoned, they'll need a safe place to recuperate, and we can devise a plan together. Izuku nodded to himself, feeling a surge of motivation. First things first, he instructed himself, I need the essentials, food, water, and shelter. Shelter comes first. Drawing from his memory, he recalled a video he had once seen on survival tactics and a few books he had read growing up. With renewed purpose, Izuku knelt and began sketching in the dirt with a stick, outlining a basic design for his shelter. He searched for 2 long logs that would form a V shape, determining their sturdiness before planting them firmly into the ground. Using a nearby rock, he hammered them in, ensuring they were secure enough to withstand the elements. After securing the frame, he found a long branch that could serve as a horizontal beam between the 2 V-shaped logs. He then turned his attention to gathering more branches, aligning them as closely as possible in length. When he spotted a tree that looked promising, he focused his energy, channeling his quirk. The tree shook slightly, a few limbs breaking off and crashing to the ground, which he quickly collected to finish his shelter. A few minutes later, the makeshift structure stood tall, and Izuku stepped back, surveying his handiwork. Looks good, he muttered, though something nagged at the back of his mind. There were critical components to consider. As he assessed the shelter, 2 significant issues emerged: the absence of insulation to protect against the bite of the cold and a lack of defenses against potential intruders. Harnessing his determination, he sprang into action. Digging into the earth, he began creating crude traps, sharp spikes concealed beneath layers of leaves strategically set around the perimeter, ensuring that he wouldn't fall victim to his creations. With the shelters and defenses taking shape, Izuku felt a renewed sense of purpose. Izuku understood that this was merely the beginning of his survival journey. Once he finished setting the last trap, his stomach let out a loud growl, reminding him that food was of utmost priority. Right now, I have to find something to eat, he murmured to himself as he made his way towards the traps he had strategically placed earlier in the day. As he approached, his heart raced with anticipation. To his delight, he discovered that one of the traps had successfully caught a rabbit. After taking a moment to admire his catch, he swiftly dispatched the creature, ensuring it had a humane end. He then checked the remaining traps and was elated to find another rabbit caught. With a mix of relief and excitement, Izuku carefully killed it as well. Next, he looked around for materials to help him prepare a meal. He gathered some sturdy tree bark, tearing it into long, thin strips, which he expertly twisted together to create a makeshift rope. With this improvised tool in hand, he wrapped it around a sturdy twig, his mind racing with possibilities. Determined to start a fire, he collected dried bark, leaves, and shavings from the forest floor. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, he focused intently as he rubbed the twig against the dried material in a steady rhythm. At first, there was just a spark, but soon wisps of smoke began to rise, and he felt a surge of hope. With continued effort, the smoke thickened, and soon flames erupted, crackling to life before him. Izuku couldn't help but smile at his success. Feeding the new fire with small twigs, he gradually added larger logs, watching as the flames danced and flickered in the dimming light of day. With the fire now roaring, his attention turned to the 2 rabbits he had caught. He approached them with a sense of purpose and respect, killing them as quickly and humanely as he could. He knew the importance of utilizing every part of the animal, so he proceeded to skin and tan their pelts carefully, making sure not to waste any resources. Afterward, he sharpened a sturdy stone into a makeshift knife, using it to cut the rabbit meat into manageable pieces. With a few seasoned sticks he had found earlier, he fashioned skewers, threading the rabbit chunks onto them meticulously before setting them beside the hungry flames. As the rich scent of cooking meat filled the air, Izuku felt a sense of accomplishment wash over him. The warmth of the fire contrasted with the cool night air that was beginning to settle around him. With the rabbits cooking slowly, he took a moment to enjoy the serene beauty of the forest at twilight. Night soon engulfed the landscape, and he relished the satisfying taste of the last bite of rabbit he consumed. As he washed it down with water he got from a stream as he boiled it to clean it, then took a drink, refreshing his throat, feeling grateful for the hard work that he had done. As he prepared for the night ahead, he gathered a thick layer of leaves to create a makeshift bed, lying down with a sharpened spear by his side. Izuku knew well the dangers that lurked in the shadows, and he vowed to always remain vigilant, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As dawn broke, Izuku stirred awake, the first rays of sunlight filtering through the gaps in his makeshift shelter. He reached for his trusty spear, feeling its familiar weight in his hand, and stepped outside into the crisp morning air. The world was still and serene, the only sounds breaking the silence being the soft rustle of leaves and the distant call of birds. Stretching his limbs to invigorate his body, Izuku let out a soft groan. Man, the shelter did its job keeping me warm, but I wish Momo were here to make a proper mattress. That was so uncomfortable. He arched his back, hearing a satisfying pop as he did so, relief flooding through him. After shaking off the remnants of sleep, Izuku turned his attention to the traps he had set the previous evening, hoping for a successful catch. Disappointment washed over him as he examined the area, noting that none of the traps had been triggered. Guess it's back to the drawing board, he muttered to himself, trying to stay positive. He took a sip from his water pouch, it was made from the stomach of a rabbit, and decided to head to the nearby stream for a proper drink. When he arrived at the stream, the water was crystal clear, sparkling in the sunlight. Izuku bent down, scooping the cool liquid into his pouch, but just as he was about to refill it, a prickling sensation shot through him, the telltale sign of his danger sense activating. Instinctively, he leaped back as a sleek wolf lunged out from the underbrush, sharp teeth bared and eyes full of hunger. To his horror, two more wolves emerged from the shadows, slowly circling him, their intentions clear. With a determined grin spreading across his face, Izuku whispered to himself, "Looks like I won't have to worry about clothes now." He tightened his grip on his spear, adrenaline coursing through his veins as he readied himself for the confrontation. In a swift motion, he unleashed his quirk, focusing his energy into the spear before throwing it with all his might. The spear hurtled through the air, finding its mark and piercing the first wolf directly in the forehead. It dropped to the ground without a sound. Not wasting a moment, Izuku pivoted to face the second wolf, which lunged at him with ferocity. He sidestepped its attack, bracing himself, and delivered a powerful kick that landed squarely on the wolf's side. The sickening crack echoed in the air as the second wolf crumpled to the ground, its body lifeless. With only the last wolf remaining, Izuku watched as it hesitated, glancing at its fallen companions with a flicker of fear. But there was nowhere to run. With a burst of speed, he charged toward it, tackling the creature to the forest floor. The wolf thrashed beneath him, teeth snapping as it tried to bite him, but Izuku was quicker. He seized its mouth with one hand, pinning it down, while reaching for a sharp rock he had collected earlier. With a swift, decisive motion, he drove the stone into the wolf's throat. There was a brief struggle, a final attempt to escape, but soon the wolf lay still, its body growing limp beneath him. Breathing heavily, Izuku got to his feet, surveying the scene. A victorious yell escaped his lips, echoing through the quiet forest as he raised his arms in triumph. Today, survival was his, and he could feel a sense of pride swell within him, mixed with the thrill of the hunt. As Izuku sat down to savor the piece of tender meat, his mind wandered back to the moment he had been liberated from his stone prison. The memory was visceral, filled with the sensation of breaking free from his stony confines. Once he finished his meal, he carefully set aside the remaining scraps on a rack, allowing them to air out in the hopes of transforming them into jerky, an effort to preserve his food for future survival. With a sense of determination, Izuku made his way back to the place where he had awakened. The terrain around him was a mix of rugged stones and tangled vegetation. As he walked, a glint caught his eye to the right, and he was startled to see a formidable stone figure standing still amidst the shadows of villain known as Tumbler, encased in rock and menace. Cautiously, he edged past the imposing statue, but felt a surge of adrenaline. With a sudden, powerful motion, he swung his left arm back and hurled it forward, his fist colliding with the stone figure. With a shattering sound, pieces of debris flew in every direction, echoing through the stillness of the landscape. Izuku watched as Tumbler's stone head rolled toward him, and without hesitation, he brought his foot down, crushing it beneath his heel, sending fragments scattering across the ground. After disposing of the villain, He resumed his journey towards the clearing where he had once been freed. Upon arrival, he knelt at the very spot, sifting through the scattered stones. With meticulous care, he began to piece them together like a jigsaw puzzle, aiming to reconstruct what had once trapped him, each fragment telling a story of his past confinement and stubborn resilience. Once Izuku meticulously positioned the final piece to reform his makeshift prison, he paused to take stock of his surroundings. The atmosphere felt charged, and just as he began to scan the area for anything unusual, a sharp, squeaking sound pierced the stillness. His eyes were drawn upward, and he caught sight of a bat flitting into the air before darting away into the shadows. Curiosity ignited within him, and he instinctively followed its erratic flight as it led him a few paces away from his original spot. Before long, he found himself standing before the gaping mouth of a cave. With a mix of trepidation and excitement, Izuku stepped inside. The air was cool and slightly damp, and as he ventured deeper, he was greeted by the sight of bats suspended from the ceiling, their wings folded tightly against their bodies. The only sounds were the occasional echo of dripping water and the distant rustle of wings. As he pressed further into the darkness, his gaze landed on dirty droplets plummeting from above, each one momentarily glistening before splattering against the cave floor. An idea sparked in his mind, and he felt a thrill of hope wash over him. Izuku instinctively ran his hands over his body, finally brushing the back of his head where he felt a peculiar roughness. To his dismay, he discovered that a portion of him was still encased in stone. Resolute, he plucked a few strands of his hair that were encumbered by the stony prison and positioned them directly beneath the incessant droplets. He settled down to wait, his heart pounding as he observed the drops fall, each thud a promise of potential change. For a moment, nothing happened, and the anticipation gnawed at him. But then, a crackling sound broke the quiet, and he watched in awe as the stone began to fracture. As the last remnants of the encasement crumbled away, the strands of hair emerged revitalized and whole once more. Euphoria surged through Izuku. He had uncovered a path to restore his friends. Hope illuminated his heart as he realized the amazing discovery he'd just made. Izuku dashed through the dense forest, the sounds of rustling leaves and snapping twigs accompanying each rapid footstep. When the rough terrain became too difficult to navigate, he activated his quirk black whip, sending tendrils of dark energy out to grip the sturdy branches above. Swinging from tree to tree like a seasoned acrobat, he maneuvered his way through the underbrush and climbed a massive oak, its bark rough against his fingertips. As he reached a higher vantage point, he scanned the sprawling landscape below for any familiar landmarks that might indicate his proximity to UA High School. Yet, the scenery was so drastically altered that nothing seemed recognizable. Just how far was I carried away? He murmured to himself, his gaze fixed on the horizon, where the sun began to dip below the tree line, casting an orange glow across the sky. Once he descended from the tree, Izuku set to work gathering dried leaves, sturdy sticks, and firewood to create a small camp. He retrieved a bag he had crafted from leftover wolf pelt, the texture warm and earthy, and pulled out the tools he needed to start a fire. As the flames flickered to life, he took out strips of homemade wolf jerky, savoring the smoky flavor as he chewed thoughtfully. Pausing to hydrate, he gulped refreshing water from his water bag, the cool liquid revitalizing him. He leaned back against a nearby trunk, his gaze entranced by the dancing flames, the crackling sound providing a comforting backdrop to the encroaching night. Better get some shut-eye, Izuku decided, gripping his spear, a reminder of the challenges he faced before allowing his weary body to slide down against the tree. He closed his eyes, lulled by the symphony of nocturnal sounds that enveloped him, and quickly drifted into a deep sleep. Meanwhile, not far from his camp, Kahaku and Nikki journeyed through the darkened woods, drawn by a glimmering light in the distance. As they drew closer, they realized it was Izuku, peacefully unconscious beside his glowing fire. Nikki raised an eyebrow, her expression a mix of annoyance and disbelief. "Man, this guy moves fast. I thought we lost him a mile back," she exclaimed, a hint of exasperation in her voice. "Well, at least we finally caught up to him," Kahaku replied, squinting as she surveyed the scene. Yet, her gaze quickly shifted to Nikki, concern etching her features. "Yeah, but we've barely stopped to eat or drink anything, and we don't have a single provision left. The closest water source is miles away. Honestly, we should have taken a break to gather supplies, Nikki added, her stomach growling loudly, echoing her frustration. Kahaku's stomach responded in kind, and she felt a pang of hunger. You're right. I'm sorry, Kahaku murmured, her attention shifting back to the sleeping Izuku. She took a deep breath, determination flashing in her eyes. Hey, where are you going? Nikki questioned, watching Kahaku take a step forward. We need food and water, right? Well, I'll just take some from him, Kahaku stated boldly, her resolve firm. Are you crazy? We don't even know what he's capable of. What if he doesn't have enough to share? Nikki countered, her voice tinged with alarm. We saw him prepare for a long journey, so he has to have more than enough food and water, Kahaku defended. I'm going, she declared, her intention clear as she began to make her way toward Izuku. Determination fueled her steps despite Nikki's hesitations, knowing the risks of their situation were overshadowed by their desperate need for sustenance. Fine, but I'm going too. Someone has to watch your back, Nikki asserted, her voice a low whisper. Kahaku nodded in agreement, and together they crept towards Izuku's campsite, moving as quietly as they could through the dense underbrush. The forest was eerily silent except for the rustling leaves and their muffled footsteps. As they reached the outskirts of Izuku's camp, Kahaku took a careful step forward but was abruptly halted by Nikki's hand on her arm. Nikki pointed down to the ground, her eyes wide. There, barely visible among the foliage, lay a vine that hovered just above the earth, an expertly concealed trap meant to alert Izuku to any intruders. Kahaku exhaled softly, gratitude flooding her expression as she slowly backed away from the deadly snare. They continued their careful advance, cautiously navigating the various traps Izuku had set in the area, sharp thorns and tripwires hidden beneath the leaves. Okay, let's grab the food and water, then we need to get out of here, Nikki instructed, her voice barely audible as excitement surged within her. They began rummaging through the belongings scattered around the camp, searching for anything of value. That's when Kahaku's gaze fell upon a striking wolf pelt bag nestled against a makeshift pile of supplies near Izuku. Her eyes gleamed with desire as she made her way toward it, inching closer with deliberate stealth. However, just as she reached out to snatch the bag, a loud growl erupted from her stomach, breaking the silence like a thunderclap. Nikki's head snapped toward her, eyes wide with alarm. In an instant, Kahaku recoiled, her heart racing as she narrowly avoided the sharp tip of Izuku's spear. Izuku woke up from his sleep, his stance defensive, his spear poised and ready for a confrontation. The tension in the air thickened, the moment teetering on the brink of chaos as they faced each other with a mix of surprise and apprehension. Tension crackled in the air as Kahaku and Nikki stood poised, weapons drawn, their expressions a mix of caution and determination. They fixed their intense gazes on Izuku, who held a spear firmly in his hands, ready for whatever might come next. What's going on here? Who are you two? He stammered, eyes darting between them, his instincts honed from past experiences urging him to remain on guard. In this charged moment, they found themselves at an impasse, each party weighing their options. The stillness was suddenly pierced by the unwelcome sound of growling stomachs Kahaku's and Nikki's. A flush crept across their cheeks in embarrassment, breaking the tension. It was an unexpected change that prompted Izuku to lower the spear slightly, a spark of understanding igniting in his mind about their true intent. Well, would you like something to eat? He offered, his voice softer now. Kahaku and Nikki exchanged wary glances, the air of threat suspended for the moment. After a brief moment of deliberation, they nodded and cautiously sheathed their weapons. With the threat somewhat diminished, Izuku planted his spear firmly into the ground and settled back against the sturdy trunk of a nearby tree. He gestured for them to join him, and though still cautious, they took their seats on the grass opposite him. Izuku retrieved some jerky from his pack, its savory aroma wafting through the air, and handed it to the two women along with a water-filled leather bag. Kahaku and Nikki accepted the jerky, their hunger overtaking their initial apprehensions as they began to munch on the dried meat. So how are you two? Izuku asked, eyeing them curiously as they chewed. After a moment of silence, Nikki and Kahaku exchanged glances again, a hint of unease lingering as Izuku continued. Well, considering you both did try to steal my rations, I think it's only fair you answer a few of my questions. Both women went still, contemplating their response. Then Kahaku spoke up, her voice steady. My name is Kahaku, and this is my friend Nikki. Izuku nodded in acknowledgement, a slight smile forming on his lips. I'm Izuku Midoriya. So, why have you guys been watching me? His question hung heavily in the air, causing the two women to shift uncomfortably. How did you know? Nikki blurted out, surprise evident in her voice. Call it a gut feeling, Izuku replied, confidence creeping into his tone. But seriously, why are you following me? Kahaku's response was measured. I want to determine if you are a threat to our village. The sincerity in her voice made Izuku raise an eyebrow, intrigued by her straightforwardness. And if I were to be a threat? He inquired, his brow furrowing slightly. Without flinching, Kahaku met his gaze and said, I would kill you without hesitation. A thick tension returned to the atmosphere, heavy with the weight of her words, the crackling of the nearby fire providing a tense backdrop. Izuku took a deep breath, noting the intensity in her voice and the steadfastness in her eyes. Well, he began, his voice steadying, you don't have to worry about me. I'm just trying to save my classmates and find out why we were turned to stone in the first place. His revelation hung in the air, an unexpected twist in their tenuous encounter. We have no reason to believe your words, so I will be watching you just to be sure, Kahaku stated firmly, her gaze steady and unwavering as she confronted Izuku. Fine, do whatever you want, Izuku replied, his voice laced with indifference. He leaned back against the sturdy trunk of a nearby tree, letting the rough bark press against his back as he closed his eyes, attempting to drift back into a peaceful slumber. Nikki, noticing the tension in the air, pulled Kahaku aside, away from Izuku's earshot. What are you thinking? She asked, her tone laced with concern as they shot a sideways glance at their watchful companion. He already knows we were watching him, and this gives us a chance to see who he truly is, Kahaku replied, her voice low but filled with determination. She felt a mix of curiosity and unease about Izuku's true intentions. Nikki sighed, rubbing the back of his neck in frustration. Honestly, if you want to take things further with him, just get it over with. But let me in as well, she suggested, a cheeky grin creeping onto his face, his voice barely above a whisper so that Izuku wouldn't overhear their conversation. Kahaku's cheeks flushed a deep crimson as she quickly shook her head. What are you talking about? I do not want to do that, she hissed, mortified at the implication. Yeah, sure, whatever, Nikki replied, rolling her eyes playfully before he turned to find a quiet spot to get some sleep. As the shadows of twilight began to envelop the forest, Kahaku settled down, her daggers clasped tightly in her hands, her senses alert even as her eyelids grew heavy. Despite feeling exhaustion tugging at her, she remained vigilant, ready to protect herself and uncover the truth about Izuku, a mystery that was far from solved. With a deep breath, she finally surrendered to sleep, the cool night air wrapping around her like a protective shroud. So, this was the end of part 1 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.